Welcome to Nutrition and Fitness 101. We are going to talk about our avatar. Our avatars. We'll talk about Doris and Dawn, who are trying another fad diet in an attempt for the almighty weight loss. And so, courtesy of my cohort in our master's program in integrated and functional nutrition at Saybrook University, my friend CJ Miller, a clinical nutritionist, has allowed me to share her slides, and you can find her at nutritionscience.life, her website, and you can also find her on Facebook at that same location. So thank you, CJ, for these lovely slides, because it takes a lot of work to get this stuff out. So we're going to talk about diet fads, overall health, and the risk versus benefit of utilizing these things, right? Because, you know, how many of you have gone paleo or keto, or maybe you've tried intermittent fasting, or perhaps you're gluten-free or dairy-free or sugar-free or holy freedom. So let's go and talk about these things. And I love this quote. This is from a JAMA article this year, so it's only January, so it just came out this month, talking about how important diet is. So let's read it together so we really understand and clarify the critical aspect of nutrition in your life. Diet plays an important role in the public health and in public health, right? And a suboptimal diet is estimated as the first leading cause of death and the third leading cause of disability adjusted life years lost in the United States. Well, in the Mama G lifestyle, our mission is to live a long, healthy, independent life. And those things surround our 5Fs, as we call them. Primary number one goal is consider your food, your nutrition critical. You can't forget that fitness, exercise component of your life. You don't have to kill yourself. You don't have to run a marathon, but you got to do something. We talk about the role of family and friends and how important they are in not only your success, but role modeling these healthy habits in their lives. And how paramount that is to the existence of our society as we know it and future societies. We talk about our faith, our spirituality, how important it is that you have a reason to get out of bed in the morning. I happen to be Catholic. My Catholic faith is incredibly important to me. I don't care if you have a formal religion, but you need to have your Jiminy Cricket on your shoulder. You need to have a care factor for not only yourself, but people and our environment that drives you each and every day. And then we can't forget the fifth F, which is your feelings. Because I'm going to tell you, in my world of nutrition, feelings drive what people put in their mouths, or the lack of food they're putting in their mouths, or the quality of food they're putting in their mouth. And so food matters. So I just think this was a really relevant quote coming out of this recent JAMA article. So let's delve into it. Where do you get your diet information? And that's important for you to consider because, you know, we have food tribes, right? Social media is primarily your food tribe. Sorry about that, guys. Let me decline that. Have to figure out how to shut that off of my phone. So your food tribe is critically important because here's fact. If you're not surrounding yourself by people or in places that role model healthy, nutrient-dense food sources, you're kind of screwed. All right. It's just like if you're hanging around with people who are drug addicts or people that are smoking or people that are drinking too much, right? Chances are you're going to start participating in that life. And, you know, for some of us who have been kind of stuck in those areas with some unhealthy habits, we've actually had to take ourselves out of those situations. So, you know, be careful where you look to your diet information. So social media really has been my nemesis as a nutrition professional. It is the primary reason I went back to school to get my master's, to counter all the bull speak out there and to be able to have a really clear evidence-based practice with science, little anecdotal information leading the way, and practicality. So beware of social media, Facebook, Instagram, all those pop-up ads that are telling you that this diet and that diet, and you've got to really consider it. Web searches, right? Dr. Google, let me look up ketogenic. Realize the top searches are going to be the pro for that. And so you look up ketogenic diet, it's going to tell you how great it is. You want to delve into the science and look at why it's perhaps not the best idea for you. That's a whole nother story. Magazines, for those of you who might sit in a doctor's office like in the old days and pop through a magazine, you're definitely going to see headlines and articles talking about the latest diet and why this particular person was successful, all of those things. Feature films. Now, you have to realize, and CJ pointed this out, and I agree with her wholeheartedly, a documentary would show you both sides of the scenario so that you, the consumer, are able to look at those sides and come up with your own evaluation based on science and evidence and all those things. Unfortunately, we have a lot of documentaries that are one-sided. And I'll just name a few. Game Changers could be one of them. What the Health could be one of them. What the Week could be one of them. There's a bunch of them out there. So they're more films telling their side of the story. They're not telling all the intricacies and perhaps their slant. So confirmation bias is a real big deal. I have confirmation bias for the Mama G lifestyle, but I can give you the science and the evidence and the anecdotal information behind it to show you why it could be successful to drive your health and lead a long, healthy, independent life. So beware of documentaries, feature films that really kind of delve in and perhaps scare you. There's a lot of fear mongering going out there, and Mama G doesn't like to play that game. Your friends, your family, I'm sure that they've tried this and they've tried this and it worked for them, so you should try it. So stay out of there and forget about the gym. You got personal trainers. By the way, Mama G, 30 years as a fitness professional. By the way, have my bachelor's in dietetics as I was a fitness professional, so I have some really sound information behind me and science and evidence behind me. But unfortunately, a lot of fitness practitioners out there have certifications that have nothing to do with nutrition. They might get information from other people they know, other trainers. They might have got it from their particular certification, which may have no evidence or science behind it. So be very, very careful. We like to tell people to stick to what you're good at. And if you're a trainer, your goal is to train that person to incorporate exercise in their life. They might have particular goals. We want to keep them safe, all kinds of things, but stay out of the nutrition realm and pass them on to nutrition experts who can actually help your clients be successful and therefore be able to come to you and have a better workout because they are stronger, fitter, and all of those things. So you have to ask yourself, how sound, how logical, how safe is this information, and who are the sources that are providing that information? All right, so let's go from there. Let's keep looking. All right, so let's talk about the old standard American diet. Apropos that the acronym for it is SAD, because it is sad. We are seeing unbelievably large size meals. We are seeing processed and ultra processed foods that can be found anywhere, and they are cheap and convenient, and it is scary because it is causing the demise of society. And this is the first generation, you young people out there who are getting ready to start family, have families. Statistics are telling us that, or it's predicted that your children, my grandchildren, will live shorter lives than their parents. We haven't seen that since the early 1900s, 1800s. And that is due to what we're putting in our mouth and the lack of movement. So cut it out. All right, this is unacceptable because the only thing that we want for our children, grandchildren, and future children is them for them to be happy, healthy, and this is not going to get them there. Let's talk a little bit about energy balance. Since we're talking about the quest of losing weight, you have to understand that when we're talking about, if we're overeating our calories, you start to store fat, right? We store those extra calories as fat and you gain weight. Doesn't matter if you're eating beautiful, nutrient-dense whole foods. If you're overeating calories based on your resting metabolic rate, your activities of daily living, and any exercise on top of that, you will have weight gain and it will be stored as body fat, okay? When we're looking at a balanced fuel intake, homeostasis, we're able to maintain our body weight and keep that weight stable, all right? Very logical. When we look at coming into a slight fuel deficit, so, we're not eating as many calories, but we're getting enough calories to get our nutrition in. This is where Mama G's lifestyle really falls into play. This is where we have an opportunity to take care of some of that fat that we're holding on to. And this will help us achieve some healthy weight loss. So not too fast and not too slow, just right. When we're looking at a deficit of fuel, deficit of these calories, we do have the opportunity to burn through some muscle mass. All right, your lean mass is muscle. We also have an opportunity to delve into bone mass if this goes on for long enough, and we are going to harm the density and mass of our muscles, of our bones. We got to be super careful there. And when we get into these, significant deficits of calories, this is what our body's like, holy crud, you're putting me into famine mood. I'm going to hold on to my fat. It's highly caloric. It'll be there for me if we get to the point where you're starving me. So, I'm going to be smart and turn everything down. And this is where we start to see some really unhealthy weight loss. And then when we take a significant dive into really having a fuel deficit, a significant fuel deficit, starvation mode, this is where we will be burning lean tissue mass. We will be now starting to strip our bones of their structures, and sure, on top of that, you will begin to burn fat because we're so desperate for calories. So really love this slide to really talk about energy balance. And last week, we did talk a little bit about energy balance and how important that is. So be sure to keep listening to our Nutrition and Fitness 101s, because we hope to keep building upon these concepts. So when calorie deficits become starvation, what does that look like and what exactly is happening to the body? So you have to understand that your body is incredibly smart. It's an incredibly efficient machine. And we need a certain number of calories, energy, to allow all the metabolic pathways to take place. And so the minute we get into a starvation mode or, really severe restriction of calories, we're not able to allow our bodies to go through those metabolic pathways. So now it has to start to go into protection mode. It says emergency, emergency, emergency. Reminded me of some TV show I watched as a kid. So this is when we start to utilize that lean tissue mass, muscle. We will use that we'll burn up muscle so that we can now use that protein for calories. We don't want to do that. Muscle is so important to us for so many reasons. This is where you see people who have gone on diets, yo-yo dieting, really extreme weight losses and things like that, and they end up having less muscle mass at the end of the diet. And that's why their resting metabolic rate is lower. And now they have to eat even less. And they can't understand when they went back to their old ways or they went on a diet again, why they weren't able to have the same results with this particular calorie deficit. So we don't want to use up lean muscle mass. Be very, very careful. Your brain is also incredibly smart. Is that a weird thing to say? But it knows. So it starts to turn things down. So our thyroids, which sits right here, kind of where the necktie is, right between the Adam's apple and your sternum, not your sternum, what is this called? Not your clavicle. Yeah, maybe the base of the clavicle here. I think I have the terminology wrong. I need to go back to anatomy. But anyway, right here, do you see it? You know, sometimes people can actually feel their own nodules on their thyroid, but the thyroid is the master mechanism that controls your thermostat. So when the brain says, hey, we're starving, we're not getting enough calories in this body, it tells the thyroid to down regulate, right? Lowering the thermostat. And now we're going to preserve calories. We're not going to utilize as much energy. But how does that happen? Well, that starts to happen when we look at the metabolism starts to slow down, right? That thyroid is so smart, and the brain communicates to all of our glands to start to turn down. So we see things like we see this all the time in women who are athletes who are not eating enough. We see this in women who are over exercising or orthorexia. We see this in women or men with eating disorders, where now our other biological systems start to downregulate and turn off. So we will see women who will stop having periods. Because their body cannot function normally, and it has to take the systems that are really important, getting fuel to the brain, getting fuel to the heart, other important organs. So we'll say, like, you know, we're going to turn this down because, number one, we couldn't support a baby if we wanted to, so we need to turn down the reproductive mechanisms and not provide as much energy there so that we can troubleshoot to the other areas. Does the same thing with your immune system. Instead of providing that energy to the immune system so it can remain strong, it says, we can't do that. We got to take care of the brain and heart, and these things are actually keeping us alive at the moment, forgetting the fact that the immune system is crucial to life. That gets turned down as well. So we get sicker more often. And then, as we talked about earlier, you know, the loss of muscle we talked about, then we talked about starting to strip the bones of the nutrition that holds them together. We started to talk about skin, the breakdown of skin, and then we start to have issues with skin and its health and hair health. So really be careful with starvation. You will see this very clearly in patients who have gone through bariatric surgery and they're not able to eat very much food. At some point, they may not be eating a proper diet, even though it's restricted. They need to eat an appropriate amount of calories. Those calories typically will come through protein. And they will be taking supplements of vitamins and minerals to make sure they're getting appropriate, again, nutrients, but a lot of people don't do it right, and they're not getting enough calories, and we start to see problems with skin and hair and muscle retention. And then we also talked about with those disorders that affect the bone, right? When we start to steal from the bone is when we start to see stress fractures and other issues there. So it's fascinating and so interesting, but man, it's hugely problematic. We can look at heart size and cardiac output. Your heart eventually will start to show the repercussions of starvation. And this is when we see people with extreme eating disorders will die because their heart stops. If you know who the Carpenters were, a lovely little brother-sister couple back in the 70s. Karen Carpenter had extreme anorexia and she died. Her heart stopped. And we also start to see your respiratory rate and other vital systems start to turn off and be affected. So be very, very careful when we talk about, you know, high restriction of calories. So when we talk about dieting and reduction of calories to lose weight, aka fat, which is what you people want when you're looking to lose weight, you want to lose body fat, not muscle mass, but as we just talked about, it's very likely depending on how you're going about this. You know, there's lots of ways to get us into a phase of weight loss. So it's really important that you understand how we create a weight loss, and it ultimately comes from a decrease in, we want a calorie deficit, right? So we want to be taking in less calories than our output. So we have a deficit, and then depending on how big that deficit is, then we start to lose weight, all right? So goal really is to lose only fat. Unfortunately, depending on how you're going about it, what diet you're using, what kind of restrictions you're on, we will potentially, like we talked about, lose lean tissue mass, not only muscle, but bone as well, and cause lots of issues within vital organs as well. So it's crucial that we feed our God-given machine, like a well-oiled machine. You would not feed your car appropriately. You would not get it, not have the maintenance it needs. You would not repair it if something goes wrong with it. But you know what? Difference in a car, we could actually replace cars. Can't replace a human body, but man, do we treat the human body so disrespectfully. So we got to give the body the nutrients it needs, the activity it needs to run efficiently. And we have got to avoid starvation. Not only are we going to break down that lean body mass, but we have a whole host of issues that could occur with that. So let's talk about different diets out there. Now, along with these particular diet, packaged foods diets, Jenny Craig, Nutrisystem, we see this with a lot of the meal prep diets out there. They'll say, well, you can do it. They'll give you the keto, they'll give you the paleo, whatever it is, whatever floats your boat, they will provide you with the food on a regular basis. They will tell you how many calories it is. You can even sometimes call out macros, and you can tell them gluten-free or dairy-free or whatever free you want. The bottom line is, yes, there's portion control. So if you're trying to get a calorie deficit, you will get it with these systems. They cost a ton of money. They only work when you're utilizing them, because you actually are having a calorie reduction. And those amounts are based on averages. So, a particular meal might, be appropriate for a 120-pound woman, but it wouldn't necessarily be appropriate for a 250-pound male. So you got to be really careful about these plans, and if they're customizing it for you and your needs and your goals. So we know immediately it does not teach you to become independent in achieving your ability to provide food for you and your family for the rest of your life. So this is a temporary scenario, and this is where we fail on the regular, and this is why we sit in a multi-billion-dollar nutrition and fitness health industry. Holy crud. Now, we can look at diets like Weight Watchers. By the way, Weight Watchers has now changed their name to WW, because doesn't it sound cool for 2020? So new name, same old story. They have changed things up over the years because people don't want to necessarily count calories or count points or count food groups or whatever. So they have something for everybody. I think Weight Watchers is great in the sense that you become accountable. They have food coaches now that you can have conversations with. You can go to meetings. They have support groups on social media. So that aspect, huge fan. Point system, not so much a fan of, but whatever floats your boat. You are definitely going to be in a calorie deficit when you're on Weight Watchers, because the goal of Weight Watchers is a weight loss diet to lose body fat. They give you pretty clear parameters. They customize the program for you. You will track, so you will use an app and other things to figure out your food. They do sell lots of products that, again, aren't necessarily wholesome in nature. And their foods aren't necessarily healthy. When we looked at bars and pills and potions and smoothies and frozen dinners and things like that, they don't necessarily hit the mark. And we certainly are not necessarily learning healthy habits, nor how to do this without this support system. I don't know if you've heard about the HCG diet, but this one still sits out there. It's where you're actually giving yourself a shot of human chorionic gonadotrophin. Holy crud. It is a hormone that we produce when we're pregnant. So it's this is paired with a very low calorie diet, 500 to 700 calories per day, kind of in the starvation mode. You get that hormone injection, and they're telling you that it, kind of protects your muscle mass. Not really sure how logical that is, but you are in starvation. And these very low calorie diets don't provide you with the nutrients or the calories you need, and your body begins that starvation mode, right? We talked about that self metabolism. And there is rebounding that can definitely occur with that starvation, right? We're lowering our resting metabolic rate because we're eating up muscle, and we're screwed. So bottom line is this last year, the FDA finally determined that this diet was dangerous, illegal, and fraudulent. Oh, excuse me, it was back in 2013. But I still see it. Still people talk about it, still out there. And by the way, you can get anything on the internet if you choose to. We see a lot of this with fen-phen. It's not fen-phen now, but fen-phen was one of those products that you can get with your doctor. It was causing some heart valve problems. I actually know a woman who died because of a complication from that heart valve problem and using fen-phen. But now you can get phentermine at the local weight loss center. They have a doctor in there who's going to write you a script for it, and it's going to have the same effect here. A drug that will speed up your metabolism. They'll put you on a very low calorie diet. And again, I think it falls into the very dangerous, illegal, immoral, and unethical categories. But, that's just Mama G. Paleo diet. Very, very interesting. They talk about the fact that, we want to eat like people ate in the caveman days. I find it very, very interesting. I can give you the science and the evidence behind it, why, while human beings have evolved, you're right, they have evolved, that we don't have the same circumstances. We're not chasing after cheetahs to kill them for food. We're not killing a mastodon and eating it, until the wild animals come in and take it from us, and then we're foraging off the land. No, because we sit no longer in food deserts in the majority of the United States. Instead, we have overabundance everywhere. So we really can't apply the paleo diet mentality. I like the fact that you're going to eat foods found in nature, whole food sources, but I don't like the restriction of grains, beans, chickpeas, lentils. Vegetable oils, I can care less, but I certainly am an advocate for olive oil, but I'm not necessarily an advocate for canola oils. They're more highly processed. So hate the fact that they're taking vegetable oils out of there, where I would put olive oil and avocado oil as good guys, and dairy. All of those things are a huge part of the Mama G lifestyle. I encourage all of my clients to participate in all of those food groups for a million reasons. And the fact that they remove them is punitive and restrictive, and it doesn't allow you to live a normal life. All right. By the way, there's nothing to do with calorie counting or portion control. I love the mentality, if it's in a box, don't eat it. But, there are certain things that I do buy in a box. I do buy a bag of bread because, you know what? I buy beautiful whole grain bread. I buy things in a box that are minimally processed, things in cans, etc. But the bottom line with paleo is it's not a weight loss diet because you can overeat your calories. You need to be in a calorie deficit while on paleo to actually lose weight. Holy paleo. Let's talk about the ketogenic, or I'm going keto. Well, the thing about keto is if you're really in ketosis, that you will be using a test strip of your urine to see if you truly are in ketosis. And most people say, well, I think I'm in ketosis, or I was in ketosis, or whatever. But if you're going to do something, you might as well give it your all. And if you're not in ketosis, that's because you're not eating according to how you need to eat to cause ketosis, to be part of the ketogenic diet phase. So as you can see here, and as CJ pointed out, it's not all the meat and fats you can eat. With the ketogenic diet, there typically is a calorie deficit, and it throws you into a starvation mode. So that is why people are successful on the ketogenic diet. Now, realize this, your carbohydrates are limited to about 5% of your calories. So if you were eating 2,000 calories, which is a lot more calories than most of you will be eating, then we are talking about like 2,000 calories, 10% of 2,000 calories is 200 calories, 100 calories coming from carbohydrates. That is a nice big plate of vegetables one time a day. That means no grains, no beans, no starches, no nothing in your life. Man, are you missing out? 20% protein. So in a 2,000 calorie diet, 10% of 2,000 is 200. So 400 calories coming from protein. That's not even that much protein, but the majority of your calories is going to be coming from fat. Holy fat. You want to know why you can't eat very many calories when you are on a ketogenic diet? Because fat and protein provides satiety. It makes you full. And you are eating so much fat that you literally can't get in enough calories. And that is where we get into that severe calorie restriction. And that paired with the ketosis that is occurring because of the composition of your macronutrients is hugely problematic. But you can certainly lose weight, because you've heard of people lost 10 pounds in my first week at the ketogenic diet. Well, number one, you are 100% losing water, because we are no longer ingesting carbohydrates. Carbohydrate is water loving. That means those food holds on to water. Now we've limited the amount of water loving nutrients that you've brought into your body, and so we lose water weight. You also will start eating muscle immediately. So I'm not giving up 1 ounce of my muscle if I have anything to do with it. So not happening for Mama G. And yes, because you're starving yourself, you will give up body fat. That's what happens with ketogenesis. And someday we will do a ketosis. Someday we will do a culinary bowl on the ketogenic diet and exactly what's happening. But I'm not going to delve into that right here. You 100% are going to be lacking on antioxidants and phytochemicals and all of those beautiful nutrients that come from carbohydrates in the form of fruits and vegetables and whole grains and starches. Yep. So you're going to be missing out on those. You're going to be missing out on fiber. So people who are on the ketogenic diet usually will take fiber supplements to help you get the appropriate supplements that you need. And the bottom line is that you, if you're on this long enough, you will ultimately increase your blood lipids and potentially put you in harm's way when we're looking at the risk of heart disease, stroke, diabetes, and the like. And we see with this diet as well an opportunity to produce kidney stones and dehydration, which helps to take those kidney stones from your kidneys through your ureters, and when you pass those stones due to the dehydration, and man, are you screwed. So as somebody who was given birth to 12 kidney stones and not being on the ketogenic diet. So, we have to realize that the ketogenic diet works. It helps people lose weight. It helps people lose body fat. It is not sustainable. And by the way, you've got to be at a calorie deficit to cause that weight loss. So, if you're overeating calories, you're going to not lose the weight that your hope was. And we are going to look at loss of muscle, which will promote loss of strength, which will then not allow you to get the workouts in to allow you to get stronger and increase your resting metabolic rate, because you have now increased muscle mass. So, in the Mama G world, we are not fans of the ketogenic diet by any stretch of the imagination. But if you want to get on the ketogenic diet, please, please, please understand what you're doing and take responsibility for that. We can talk about plant-based diets. Now, I honestly don't like the word plant-based. I think that if you're a vegan and you only eat plants, that you should say, I eat only plants, not plant-based, because I feel Mama G eats plant-based, which means the base of my diet comes from plants. So there is, confusion there. But when you see the term plant-based diets, it is typically having to do with veganism. So know that depending on who you're talking to. And like I said, it's, pretty loose term out there. Vegans say they're plant-based. Mama G, who is more plant forward, will call herself plant-based. So when you go on a diet with the hope of losing weight in a plant-based diet, understand what that looks like. All kinds of benefits to plants because they're wholesome food, lots of fiber, lots of nutrition in there. We love to see people who are on plant-based diets eat a variety of nutrients because each food has its own nutritional composition. So we want to make sure that you eat a variety of these plants so we get all kinds of nutrients. Ultimately we are looking at the majority of your plate, filled up with those plants. Carbohydrates, by the way, from whole food sources. And we know that this diet promotes cardiovascular health, GI health, makes that gut microbiome super healthy. And by eating a plant-based diet where we are getting adequate protein and healthy fats in there as well, that we will have good control of your blood sugar. But again, in order to be successful for weight loss, if that's why you're on this diet, you are going to have a calorie deficit. So being on this diet does not mean that you are going to lose weight. So, and understand that people who, call themselves plant-based can eat junk. This picture on the left is a vegan diet. It is a burger with white crappy flour, a little bit of vegetables in there, and a plant-based burger. And by the way, a lot of the plant-based burgers out there, and you can read labels, you can see that they've got a lot of things in there that you don't even know what they are. And if you don't know what they are, Mama G believes that you shouldn't be eating them. That pizza has vegan cheese on there. Again, something that Mama G does not condone because there are lots of chemicals and foods that I don't even know what they are that make up something that melts like cheese. You can get soy analogs, which are foods that look like meat. By the way, if you're a vegan, why would you choose to eat meat? Something that looks like meat. So they're highly processed. We see things like sausages and pepperoni type foods that are made from a lot of not real foods. French fries, who knows what those were fried in, but I have no issue with the French fries that are utilized with wholesome potatoes, and perhaps you use an air fryer or bake them in the oven after you toss them with olive oil and garlic and some seasoning. Delicious. And pastries, as you can see on the left there too, as long as they're not made with dairy or animal products, can certainly be part of a plant-based junk food diet. On the other hand, we can also look at beautiful wholesome food like we see on the right that can certainly be plant-based, plant-focused, and provide a ton of nutrition. Now we can get the vegan diets, which are strict plant-based, but I call them plant-exclusive diets. And this is where all of your foods will come from plants. You will need to supplement with a vegan diet. You will not get adequate B12, which comes from animal foods, animal proteins. And so we need to make sure that you are getting supplementation of that. We also know that most people will need to consider supplementation of iron, zinc, and iodine, depending on the type of foods they're eating. We know with strict vegan diets that it's important that we get a variety of proteins so that we are making sure that we're getting the essential amino acids that we cannot make by our body. They're called essential because our body needs them, and that we have to get them from food because our body is not able to synthesize them. Omega-3 fatty acids, we will need to supplement those. You have to be very diligent and thoughtful about making sure you're getting enough calcium So you might need supplementation there, and the majority of the world's population needs supplementation with vitamin D, but we'll see that more, especially when we're not consuming certain foods that vegans, stay away from. So we've got to be careful with our vitamin D because that can cause a whole host of health issues. So bottom line again, a vegan diet can be very healthy, but it takes a thoughtful vegan. You got serious meal planning. You got to consider tracking and proper supplementation. And just like with every other diet, if you're looking to lose weight, you have to be in a calorie deficit. It is not a weight loss diet. We also see that there are huge issues with protein. Now, protein, vegans will tell you, I don't have an issue with protein, but if you start tracking your protein, you'll see it. And we see with a lot of vegans, they ingest a lot of protein powders. Of course, they're not going to have an issue with protein, but Mama G really prefer you to get your protein from wholesome, real food. One of these films, Game Changers, was really demonizing anybody who consumes any animal products for a whole plethora of reasons, and saying that you can eat this versus that. But not that I am promoting a steak, by the way. I think a steak, beef, should be used in moderation. It should be used as a treat or a splurge, but I want to show you the difference in a lean piece of steak, not a really fatty steak, to help produce, we want to reduce your risk of heart disease and other diseases. So we want to make sure you're having a piece of meat that is lean and has less saturated fat. But in this steak, we're going to see about 173 calories. We've got about 8 grams from fat. So, about 40% of those calories coming from fat. 26 calories coming from protein, which, that 26 calories, 26 grams of protein, the Mama G lifestyle is what I want the majority of my clients to make sure they're getting at least 20 to 30 grams of protein, depending again on your size. For my female clients, that's their sweet spot. So, to have a couple ounces of chicken or steak or fish or other type of lean proteins, you're going to hit your mark there. And you're going to see that with our essential amino acids that we have to consume, that we're hitting the mark with 5 of them with this steak. So that's really important to pay attention to. And this is just one particular, protein option for one particular meal, not even through the course of your day. On the other hand, when you look at a show like the Game Changers and they're talking, well, it's easy to get your, protein needs met. Well, you would now have to consume a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Now, what I'm saying about that steak, we still have another 225 calories to consume. I would have paired that steak or other lean protein with some starches and grains, whole beautiful plant sources of starches, and a big plethora of vegetables. So in my perfect world, I'd have about 100 calories of non-starchy vegetables, 100 calories of what I call starches and whole grains, and there would be your beautiful meal mixed with some additional healthy fats. On the other side of it, now we're going to look to a meal that is 651 calories. By the way, my female clients will only be eating about 400 calories, so it's 250 calories over their allotment, which means it's a meal and a snack, which they will not be consuming. It gets them the same amount of protein, but again, this is 2 meals, so we're not really hitting the mark for that protein. There's a whole heck of a lot of carbohydrates for those of you who are not interested in consuming that many calories worth of carbohydrates. And because you're having to consume so much peanut butter in order to get the appropriate protein from it, because the bread will only provide us with a couple grams of protein, we are now looking, let me do a little quick calculation, at about 400 calories coming from fat, meaning that 2/3 of this meal, 60-something% of our calories are coming from wholly fat. Yeah, it's just not apples to apples, orange to oranges situation here. You got to be really thoughtful if you're going to be a vegan. And I encourage my clients every day to consume at least 1 or 2 vegan/vegetarian meals a day. And it requires a little more forethought, but I'm a huge fan And I am pro-vegan all day long, as long as you do veganism in a healthful way. You have to look at, your particular situations. I think the Michael Phelps situation is really clear. Coming up on the Olympics here in a couple months, which Mama G, Baby Bear Elena, and Papa Coos are going to, because Papa Coos is announcing water polo at the Tokyo Olympics. He's made it to the big game. Does he actually get to call himself an Olympian? Perhaps. But, Michael Phelps can get in all of his nutrients because he's eating 12,000 calories a day. I'm just going to say to you, for my typical female client who's eating 1,500 calories a day times 7, that's 10,500 calories a day, a week. They're not even consuming in one full week what Michael Phelps consumes in a day. So have at it, Michael Phelps. It is all about calorie consumption, getting in all of the nutrients, and his incredibly efficient machine of a body. Would I prefer him to eat a lot of really wholesome foods incorporated in there? Yes, but I'll tell you what, he's going to have to eat a lot of quick carbs, which are going to be more glucose-based carbohydrates to provide him with the energy he needs for his workouts. And, we need to make it a little more practical and logical. So we're going to get things in that are highly caloric, have more fat in them as well, so that he is not eating all day long and having no time for his workouts. Talking about the Olympics again, this was Usain Bolt when he broke, he was the fastest man in the world. Well, he did not like the food that they provided for him in Beijing for those Olympics. So he purportedly ate 100 chicken nuggets a day during his time in Beijing because he was so picky. And then he'd throw in some fries and an apple pie every once in a while. But guess what? This man is like Michael Phelps, a very, very special specimen. The typical human being, number one, could not consume those calories. Number two, does not have the body, the capability, the genetics, or anything else that Usain Bolt possesses. So while it may sound exciting to you to potentially eat that way, understand that this guy, Michael Phelps, are freaks of nature, and their food consumption is a freak of nature as well. So vegetarian diets. So, this is where we're looking at mostly plant-based diets. This is where you will have your foods coming from plants and dairy and eggs. We have pescatarians who add fish in there. We've got different kinds of lacto-ovo, which is a typical vegetarian, but then you slide those all out that we go into a vegan diet. We, again, might be looking at some deficiencies like in vitamin B12, along with the iron, zinc, and iodine as potential omega-3 fatty acids as well. In terms of ease, practicality, it is a heck of a lot easier to be a vegetarian than a vegan. Again, you got to be serious about it. You got to plan, you got to track. And again, you can certainly be a crappy vegetarian as well. And ultimately, it is not a weight loss diet unless you have a calorie deficit. That being said, we got to talk about intermittent fasting. It's just too on the spectrum of fads and trends right now. People will also call it time restricted eating. There is no pure definition. We talked about the ketogenic diet. There is a pure definition, but people skew that definition all the time. But if you want to remain in ketosis, you've got to be eating very restricted with your macronutrients. With intermittent fasting, time restricted eating, again, there's no clear definition of it, but the goal is for people, because people are typically doing it for calorie restriction, that the goal is to have a calorie restriction on a daily basis, over a weekly basis, over a monthly basis, to cause weight loss. People split the way they eat up, or the days up, into different kind of fasting periods. There seems to be some evidence and science behind it. Mama G still will stick by at this point in time the fact that we fast at nighttime. So I'd love to see my clients, stop eating around 7 to 8 o'clock at night, and then, giving themselves a good 10, 12 hours before their breakfast begins. So I'm going to call that the Mama G preferred intermittent fasting method. But, we see people who will fast 16 hours a day, eat at 8 hours a day. They won't start eating till noon. They start eating at 8. What happens is you're cutting out meals. So you're only eating between certain time frames. Depending on what your life looks like, you're probably not going to get in a ton of calories, which AKA is that calorie deficit. You might lose weight, but again, depending on what you're eating, you could certainly overeat calories and not be able to sit in that calorie deficit for your ultimate goal of weight loss. Some people will do like a 5-2 method. They'll eat very restricted for 5 days. They might even mix that in with some intermittent fasting, and then days 6 and 7, maybe it's the weekend, they have a field day. They call it their cheat days. And, ultimately you can end up eating more on those cheat days because you're so desperate, because you have restricted yourself so much. You've been in such a punitive mode that people end up not losing weight at all and potentially lose weight. So again, we got to worry about down regulating that thyroid and other hormones that are going through your body with extreme restriction of calories could happen here. And ultimately, to be successful in a diet like this, you have to have a calorie deficit to lose weight. Now, Mama G, my friend CJ, Clinical Nutrition are huge fans of the Mediterranean diet. According to USA News and World Report, every single year for every year running, the Mediterranean diet sits in the top 3 diets for the most successful, most studied, most science-based, with the most efficacy to drive health, along with the Mind diet and the DASH diet, all versions of the Mediterranean diet, basically eating real wholesome food. Of course, Mediterranean diet makes you think that you have to eat like they do in the Mediterranean, but we're going to say you can eat any food culture with this thought process of using real wholesome food and a healthy plate approach. So, bottom line is it's going to promote a healthy weight. It's healthy for our hearts, for our brains, our immune system. It helps to reduce inflammation. It is we use it with diabetics. It provides us with great nutrition, so we promote gut health. It's high in fiber, helps reduce our risk of colorectal cancers. Yes, it helps us to promote a healthy microbiome. It provides us enough nutrition to have adequate bone and muscle health. But again, a Mediterranean diet is not a weight loss diet unless you sit in a calorie deficit. And this is the type of food we're talking about in a Mediterranean diet. Beautiful, wholesome, real food that you can actually consume for the rest of your life and never, ever, ever feel deprived again. There is, different aspects of Mediterranean diet shopping lists out there. I'm happy to share this one with you guys, and I'll do so in the notes that go along with this YouTube video. But you can Google anything in terms of Mediterranean diet shopping list, and really what you're going to see on there is real wholesome food with pretty much no restrictions other than restrictions of crap. Things that we know: when you overeat, you will store body fat. When you starve yourself, you will utilize your muscle mass, bone mass, and some fat to keep yourself alive. In order to maintain your weight, you need to eat the perfect amount of calories balanced with your output for homeostasis. And if you're looking to lose fat, you've got to hit that sweet spot to have that calorie deficit to get all of your nutrition, as well as allow all of your bodily processes to work effectively, which will allow you to burn body fat. So we know that, didn't we just do that? Yes, we do. Okay, let's keep going. Where are you? Why are we stuck? 2, 3. Oh, Mama G. So the answer to weight loss is not exercise. Exercise will help you to increase your caloric output, which will help you lose more weight. Exercise will help to achieve calorie deficit, which will help lose more weight, but you cannot out-exercise a bad diet. So huge proponent of exercise in the Mama G lifestyle. You already know that. We are trying to find that sweet spot, to help you prompt fat loss without the negative effects of starvation, which we've gone over. So for all of you out there, we encourage, like the World Health Organization, the American Cancer Society, American Medical Association, et cetera, that every human being gets at least 150 minutes of moderate activity a week. For the majority of you, it's going to be a walk. You will get a little warm, you will get a little sweaty, you will get a little out of breath, and that would be very appropriate. That's 5 30-minute sessions a week. You can walk, you can go to the gym, you can go to the mall. I don't care, but that will help support weight loss because you will burn extra calories. And you want to choose a diet that has lots of plants with adequate amount of proteins and adequate amount of calories and adequate amount of nutrients, so we can actually drive health along with improving your body composition to drive health as well. So what's that look like? It looks like this. It looks like a beautiful plate that is approximately half a plate of non-starchy vegetables. We have about a quarter plate of those starches and grains in the wholesome way. You can see here some beautiful farro. You can see a nice, beautiful salad, and we can see a beautiful piece of salmon. And I hope that that salad is covered with a little bit of olive oil, perhaps nice little dressing, to promote some healthy fats in your life. And there is exactly what we are telling you. I love the Bastura Healthy Plate. I will also link this in the show notes for you. A huge fan. It also talks about where fruits fit in your life and digestives, such as things like fermented foods and live foods with live cultures, and water. Big fan of that. And ultimately, in closing, we're going to talk about the fact that, you can build your meal with that healthy plate approach. You can choose wholesome foods over processed foods to drive health. You can incorporate foods from that Mediterranean diet food list. We want you to vary your colors and your food sources, including exercise most days of the week. And ultimately, if we can hit your sweet spot, hitting that calorie deficit, if you're looking to improve your health by improving your body composition, then you will be in your sweet spot to achieve weight loss. But instead of doing it in an unhealthful way, choosing one of the diets we discussed, we can actually do it in a really beautiful way that can lead to you leading a long, healthy, independent life. So we'll leave with this quote, that good nutrition contributes to the quality of life and, oh, can I even say it? Ameliorates effects of illness. In other words, it removes the ill effects of illness. So food matters, a little calculated exercise matters, and together we can drive your health. So you know what Mama G always says, it is not about what you lose, folks. It is all about what you gain. Have a beautiful day.